grade book club friends. We are going to begin our next book, The Secrets of Droon, and the title of this one is The Lost Empire of Koomba. Now, I told you last week when we met that I would read you the first chapter, and I'm going to pause along the way because we are jumping from book 1 all the way to book 35 in the series. And so our main characters, Eric, Neil, and Julie, are still the same, but some things have changed and some things have happened. So along the way, we need to pay attention to that as we're listening in the first chapter to understand. So as you listen, I want you to pay attention to what is different or what things have changed with Eric, Neil, and Julie, and what also maybe powers have they gained or what have they learned, what's going on, so that we're ready to move into the rest of the book. Another thing I'm going to do is update our character chart. We started a character chart. I'm going to update that and I'm going to link it to your new Google Doc for your book club. So you probably found this link in your new Google Doc for this book club. We started one over because our other one was getting pretty long. I will also put the link to our character chart in there to keep track of who are all these different characters. Are they good? Are they bad? And then you can update that as we go along. So enjoy as we begin our first chapter, which is called The Riddle in the Smoke. The Riddle in the Smoke. Crunch, crunch, slurp, crunch. Try to be quiet, Neil, whispered Julie. You'll wake the Hinkles. Sorry, said Neil, licking his lips. It's hard to resist free food. Crunch, slurp. Neil had plucked a ripe apple off the outside of their friend Eric's bedroom window. It was an hour before dawn, and Julie and Neil were high in the branches of the tree. Once they'd sneak in Eric's window, they had hoped to slip down to his basement without his parents seeing them. Neil had woken Julie earlier to say that he dreamed of giant drifts of green snow. Green snow could mean only one thing. They were being called back to Droon. Tell me again, whispered Neil. Why aren't we using the door? Because I unlocked the window yesterday when I pretended to be Eric, Julie said. Julie had the power to change shape. She'd pretended to be Eric because he was trapped in Droon and because she didn't want his parents to worry. I'm going to pause right there. So we just learned a whole bunch of things. We learned, one, that they find out when they're supposed to go back through Droon through their dream. So they had a dream of green snow, and that means that they're being called to go back to Droon. Number 2, that somewhere between book 1 and book 35, Julie got a power that she can change shape. So she can change and be somebody else. So yesterday she had changed to be Eric, because the third thing we just found out is that Eric is trapped in Droon. So they have to kind of hide this from his parents. So Julie sometimes goes and pretends to be Eric, and she looks like Eric because she can change shape. And then sometimes she's actually Julie. Okay, so we're going to go on now. I'm at the very bottom of page 2 if you're following along. The door would have been so much easier, Neil sighed. The Hinkles lock the door at night, said Julie, reaching for another branch. Now hush! As she drew closer to the window, Julie thought about how much she loved that tree. It was the same tree that they had all gotten stuck in way back in kindergarten. Eric's mother had to come rescue them. If it hadn't been for that hour spent in those branches, Julie might not have become Eric's close friend. If she hadn't become his friend, she might have not been in his basement when the magical staircase to Droon was discovered. And if she'd never discovered Droon, she would certainly not have gained magical powers. Magical powers? That also happened in a tree, but not this one. Okay, so now they're going to go back and tell us how she got her powers. So we're doing a flashback. It was high in the treetops of the Bangledorn forest that Julie was scratched by the hand by a wicked creature called a wingwolf. The scratch had hurt at the time, but Julie later discovered that it had passed both wingwolf powers to her. She could fly, and she could change shape. Okay, so I'm going to pause and think. So now I know Julie can fly. She has that power, and she's a shape changer. Crunch, crunch. It's a little sour, Neil said. And a little loud, said Julie. Shh! Pausing just below Eric's window, Julie wondered what she had always wondered. Would her powers help them in Droon that day? She had hoped so, because Droon certainly needed help. In a fierce attack directed at Galen, the wizard, Eric had been poisoned by an ice dagger. And that was bad enough. But the terrible moon dragon, Gethwig, had used Eric's illness to transform him into Prince Ungast, a wicked boy sorcerer who joined Gethwig's crown of wizards, the greatest alliance of evil in the history of Droon. Eric was still alive, deep inside Prince Ungast, but he was fading fast. Even worse was the fact that Gethwig's armies were gathering for a massive attack on Jaffa City. I'm going to pause. So we have another big thing here. We found out that Eric is not only stuck in Droon, but he's also stuck into the body of Prince Ungast, who's really an evil prince in the evil side. 5 days, Eric had told their friend Prince Kia, I can hold them off for 5 days. Bring me the moon medallion. It's the only way to save Droon. If you can't, then it's over. The moon medallion was a device of unspeakable power. Julie knew that plans were underway to bring it to Eric. Pausing to steady herself, she looked out on their sleeping neighborhood. I can hold them off. Eric's words were brave, but she knew he was locked in the greatest struggle of his life. But there was something else preying on Julie's mind as she scanned the houses and the streets. Only hours before, a trio of strange, silent creatures, known as the Hunters, had ascended the magic stairs. Now they were out somewhere. What were they hunting for, or whom? Okay, one more branch, she whispered. Reaching up to the top limb, Julie felt her fingers slip. Ow! A twig flicked her hand, scratching it. All at once, her breath caught her throat. Her ears burned. Her heart thumped. Her head swarmed. Neil, To stop everything spinning around her, she closed her eyes. Then she was no longer outside Eric's house. She was in a place filled with swirling purple smoke, a fog of violet so thick she could barely see. A shape moved in the smoke. It was large and cloaked and stepped toward her awkwardly. The smoke parted, and she saw the figure's face. I'm going to pause before I keep going. So the other thing we just learned is that 3 creatures from Droon, known as the Hunters, ascended the magic stairs. And ascended means they came up the stairs. And now they're in Earth. They're in like our world. These 3 hunters from Droon are in our world, and we don't know where they are or what they're doing. Okay? And so that's what ascended means, is when you ascend, you go up. And now Julie just ended up in a different place when she fell from the tree. And she was in a smoky, purple smoky area. And now she's opening her eyes. It was Galen. And now remember, Galen was the good wizard that they met in book 1. He was in the tower with the long beard. He had the pilka and he had the spider max. His old features were dark. He seemed troubled, uncertain, and afraid. He spoke in a whisper. Stolen. No one. For 100 years. Galen, Julie whispered. A second shape now hovered behind him in swirling smoke. Wizard, come it. It is time. The wizard shook his head over. No! This was the journey the wizard had told them that he would soon be taking. Could the other figure be Anusa, Galen's genie friend, his guide on the journey? If it was Anusa, then why was he so troubled? A moment later, the purple smoke ensounded both figures, and they were gone. Galen, said Julie. Galen! The name is Neil, said Neil. And you're in my way. Suddenly, Julie was back in the apple tree. Oh my gosh, she said. I just had a vision. I think Galen might be in danger. Neil, I have to warn him. Ahem, said a voice. Julie looked up. 5 feet away, leaning out the bedroom window, was Eric's mother. Mrs. Hingle, just what do you think you 2 are doing out there? Neil sighed. We're so busted. Mrs. Hinkle frowned. Get in here before you 2 break your necks. She helped him through the window into Eric's room. Then she searched their faces and breathed out a long, slow breath. Her eyes pooled with tears. The forgetting spell, said Julie. You remember, don't you? Mrs. Hingle nodded slowly. When I saw Eric's empty bed this morning, everything came back to me. I know your friend Kia put a spell on me, but it faded. I know about Prince Ungast and that dragon. Kia said the power of love can break the strongest spell, said Julie. Mrs. Hingle sat on the bed and buried her face in her hands. Oh, my Eric. Mrs. H., we need to go back to the basement right away, said Neil. Eric said Droon would fall in 5 days if we didn't act fast. Eric's mother wiped her cheeks and stood. Then I am going with you. So I'm going to pause. We just found out that Kia had put a spell on Eric's mom so that she would forget these things. But Julie just said that love could break any spell. And right now, her spell is breaking, and she's remembering that Eric is stuck in Droon. What, said Neil? Very funny, Mrs. H. It's not a joke, I'm going, the woman said. He's my son, and I'm his mother. I'm going. But yeah, Neil murmured. I can help Eric, his mother said. I am certain of it. When she saw the determination in Mrs. Hinkle's face, Julie realized they couldn't stop her from trying to help her son. She knew how she would feel if someone had tried to stop her from helping her friend. Whatever Mrs. Hinkle was feeling must have been 10 times that. Well, maybe just you can go, she said. The bedroom door opened, and in walked Mr. Hinkle. Go? Go where? He said. Where are we going? Wait, where's Eric? Eric! Dear, there's no time to waste, said Mrs. Hinkle. Our son is a wizard. He's trying to keep the land of Droon free, but he's in trouble. Serious trouble. As they explained everything, Mr. Hinkle's face went through a dozen expressions in rapid succession. Disbelief, anger, concern, sorrow, and bewilderment. Finally, he turned to the children. Eric is a wizard? He asked. He is, said Julie. I wonder if he gets that from me, Mr. Hinkle said. People say I'm kind of a wizard with hedge clippers. Julie smiled. Of course, it really is a blast from Kia that she had given Eric these powers, just as if it was the wing lift scratch that gave her her abilities. But it was just like Mr. Hinkle to find the funny in a terrible situation. I'm going to pause you real quick. So we just kind of can make the inference here that Mr. Hinkle had no idea that any of this was going on, and they just filled him in on everything about Droon. So they don't directly say that, but we can infer that, figure it out. Well, if Eric's in trouble, then we are absolutely going to Droon, Mr. Hinkle said. First of all, it's Droon, said Neil. And you're really kind of have to do what we say. I mean, please. Fair enough, said Mrs. Hinkle. Let's go. Moments later, they were crammed into a little closet under the basement stairs. They shut the door behind them, and Julie switched off the ceiling light. Whoosh! The floor beneath their feet vanished and became the top step of a staircase that curved through the air all the way to Droon. Amazing, said Mr. Hinkle. Who built these steps? They're very professional. Our friend the wizard, Gallon, created them, said Julie, remembering her strange vision again. He was so worried. I must tell him what I saw. Down and down they went through the swirling pink clouds, while Neil barked orders to the Hinkles every step of the way. Not too fast. Hold on to the railing. The stairs are slick, and be careful where it curves. The stairs have a mind of their own. Also, whatever you do, don't look down. Don't look up either. You'll get dizzy. Neil, we've walked down these stairs before, said Mr. Hinkle. Sorry, I guess I'm taking control again, Neil said. It's the genie in me. You're a genie, Neil? Said Mrs. Hinkle. Congratulations. Thanks. I really like my turban, he said. So now we can make another inference that Neil must have some genie powers. He must have gotten powers because we know Eric is stuck in the prince's body. We know Julie can fly and is a shape changer. And now we learn that Neil must have some kind of genie powers. Maybe he can grant wishes. We don't know yet. Soon the children spotted a vast green plain sliced by several lines of blue water. River Tangle, said Julie. We've been here before. Be careful. Beasts are everywhere. One more thing, said Neil. Sometimes the stairs vanish. Mr. Hinkle smiled. Now that's pretty clever. Stairs vanish at the bottom so the bad guys can't see them, right? Julie stole a look at Neil. Not always. Sometimes they disappear at other times. What other times, said Mrs. Hinkle. Sometimes the stairs vanish before we get to the bottom, Neil said, picking up the pace. Mrs. Hinkle paused. Before, like when? Like now, said Neil, as the steps quivered beneath their feet. Like now. Now! All at once, the rainbow stairs wobbled and wiggled and faded in the air. You said to hold on to the railing, Mr. Hinkle, said Mr. Hinkle, but there is no railing. And the two children and the two parents plunged headfirst to the ground. And that is the end of chapter 1. So we can infer that they are in Droon, and they said that they were in the River Tangle area, and there's a lot of beasts. That was not part of book 1. And the stairs have disappeared, so they fell to the ground. And so just to kind of recap the chapter, we know that Eric is missing and he's in Droon and he's trapped in an evil prince's body. And the prince, they said his name was Prince Ungast. Okay, so he's evil, and Eric said that Droon only has 5 days that he can hold off the evil forces before Droon would be destroyed. We found out that Julie can fly and she can change shapes. We found out that Neil has some kind of genie powers. And then we found out that Galen could somehow be in trouble. So all of those things are really important as we go forward with the book to understand that. So I wanted to take some time to read this part together for your Tuesday assignment for your reading. So when Mrs. Stallenwerk and Mrs. Morzinski said to read for your book club today, this was your reading. Your listening today was your reading. We're not doing a response today, but we will meet at 1:30 to talk about this and answer any questions that we have and to preview chapter 2 for Wednesday. So we'll talk about some things that will happen in chapter 2 so that you're all ready to read it for your book club assignment Wednesday. You have no writing to do for Tuesday, okay? Your writing will be on Wednesday. I look forward to seeing you this afternoon at 1:30, friends. I'll talk to you later.